Howard, can I start with you? What makes the Olympics so different from other sporting events than like things like the FA Cup or a Test match? You've obviously had dealing with those for many years.
Well, I think we've had some great advice actually from Vancouver about this. That the thing is, it's the sustaining your energy. You know, you can deal with a World Cup, you know, a football final, 80,000, 90,000 people. You can deal with even the Notting Hill Carnival, where we have 1 million people over a weekend. But this is relentless, and it goes on for a period of time, and then you have a little break, and then you're back again. And I think it's sustaining the energy of the staff, the supporting infrastructure, I think is going to be our biggest challenge. And we're looking at all sorts of ways. We've got 1,000 volunteers who are coming to join us on the front line, qualifying as station assistants. And I intend that every office within the Transport for London infrastructure will be empty, barring the few essential back-of-house staff. We want to get everyone engaged in the Olympics so we can make it a successful event. Okay.
So, Mike, did you do this in Vancouver in terms of finding extra staff, bringing in volunteers? How do you? Because you've got an automated system there. It doesn't just run itself. You still need people to handle the crowds.
Yeah, absolutely. You need people on the ground, acting as ambassadors, helping people find their way through the system. Because you have a lot of people who probably are visitors to the city. You also have a lot of people who may not normally take transit or may not take that particular route that they're taking on that day. They need help getting around the system. So we certainly had all of our folks out, except for the very essential ones, in the street greeting people, and it was a great success. People really enjoyed being out and really getting contact with the customers one-on-one.
Okay. Can I turn to Jerzy Lek? You've got the Euro 2012 coming up in Warsaw this year. What are you doing to prepare for it in terms of enhancing the city's rail network?
The Euro Cup 2012 will organize in our country in four cities. Mm-hmm. And we will have, from this reason, we will have only 25% of problems, and not 100% as my colleagues. And you know, from this reason, we will prepare special organization and for our traffic. And the problem which we should solve, it is good transport between the fan zone, which will be organized in the city center, and National Stadium. And for this procedure, for this problem, we are preparing, of course, special organization in our tube, and also special organization for tramways and buses. And you know, the main role in this funds transport will have tramways.
Mm-hmm. The trams will take.
Yes, tramways because it is very good connection, very heavy connection between the fan zone and National Stadium, and also after the ceremony, we plan close a lot of parts of city center, and it will be special. It will be areas special dedicated for the fans, for the pedestrians, mm-hmm. and also for policemen, police forces.
Resources. Yeah, I think one of the interesting challenges is this question of visitors who are not familiar with the cities, and metros are used to carrying huge numbers of people, but lots of them are doing their daily commutes or regular flows. They know the system, they know the stations, they know how to get around. Not only have you got to cope with them, you've then got all these other people coming in who don't know their way around, who need advice. You could put people out there, but what can you do in terms of signage and other such flows, and actually sort of reconfiguring your stations to sort of push people in the right direction? Howard, do you go?
Yeah, I think we're trying to build on the sort of iconic simplicity of the underground map. We're trying to ensure that Harry Beck, who was that famous engineer who designed that map, has that sort of influence that we're trying to bring. We've got a branding colour which the Olympics are using. It's, I think, called magenta. I'd say it's sort of bright pink, but it's magenta. It will be featuring on all our car cards, underground maps, wayfinding. Again, I think from our experiences in other Olympics, is you've got to provide some really big, clear signs of where you're going. One of our challenges is when people leave the stadium or parks, and they have got to find up to 10 or 12 different lines. And of course, what the park wants to do, they want to push everybody out the park, and then it's your problem. And what we want to do is for them to start to segregate people and route people before they leave so that we can manage the people in a correct way. And I think that's a challenge. Signing is so important. Language, I think, is an interesting issue. We have, luckily in our workforce, about 30% of our workforce have the ability to talk or speak in other languages. We're a very multicultural workforce, which will be great. And they are different people. I think there's quite a challenge in there between football supporters, and God love them all, you know, and the people who come to, like the Royal Wedding Olympics, they are mesmerised by the city in the first place. They're overawed by the underground sort of system and the transport infrastructure, and we've got to make them have a great time. And I think we've got to give them that feeling that, you know, they're going to enjoy themselves, and part of that great experience will be you travelling on public transport to and from the venue. So that's what I'm most looking forward to. Yeah. But signing is essential.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Super. How are you going to do it in Rio?
Yes, the problem in language is strong for us because Portuguese is not so useful. But we already done all the signal system in the station in Portuguese and English. All the announcements in English also inside the trains. And we have a large number of security agents. Because in Rio, in Brazil, inside the system, we have the police power. We don't carry weapons, but we have this power inside the stations. So we have 350 agents, more quite 100 people to help in the platform. These 350 are heavy trained. We start the work after 7 months of training. They know about the system. And until the Olympic, we are trying to train these guys to not to are able to speak in English, but to can help people in English. Okay. But the Spanish is easier to us because the language is closer, and so it's possible to communicate.
So it's having a variety of different skills spread out over the network, so you've got a reasonable chance that somebody will be able to make contact in some way.
Yes, and this objective to help people to focus in the customer, it's a goal beside the Olympic.
Yeah. If we can sort of turn a bit to the question of sizing the flows and actually calculating how many people you're going to have. You've got an idea of the numbers, but I sort of wonder, is people will drift into the venues all day, but everybody will suddenly want to go home at 10 to midnight or something. Is that, do you actually see the sort of the traffic coming away as being a bigger problem than the traffic coming in? Do you want to start, Mike? What was your experience?
Yeah, our experience was exactly that certainly the peaks were a lot sharper, getting everybody out of the venues and stuff at the end of the day.
Which is the opposite of the classic business peak, where everybody comes in the morning and then they all drift home over the course of the afternoon and the evening.
We have an additional challenge at the Olympic Park because Westfield have one of the biggest shopping malls in the UK, if not Europe, right next to Olympic Park. And of course they are very interested in commercially filtering as many of their Olympic Stadium ticket holders either through their area or on the way home. And one of the worries we have is that, you know, whilst we're running to 2:30 in the morning, we don't want people to hang around too much, enjoying themselves, you know, and sort of grab those last trains, which often is a bit of a challenge. And there are big distances. You know, if you're leaving the park, walking to West Ham Station, which is one route, will take you 25 minutes. So it's a distance which people have to think about as they're ending the day. But yeah, I think we're anticipating that lots of people won't hang around. They want to get home. They want to enjoy it. They want to see it back on TV, or they want to get back to their hotels in central London.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say the distance away, you know, if people have to walk a fair way, that helps meter the crowd as well, so that the system can handle it a little better.
Okay. Jerzy, you want to?
Yes, in Warsaw, we made two test events, and we noticed that the first means of the public transport, it is walk. You know, because the distance between National Stadium and Fan Zone, it is around 3 kilometers. And to the majority members of this event walk. And after this 2-3 kilometers, we plan to organize this second zone, second scenario. It is public transport, tramways and buses. And then after a half kilometer, metro will be ready for the rest of passengers.
Okay. So people will sort of gradually filter
Yes,
out into different
because capacity
avenues.
of Fan Zone it is around 100,000 people, and capacity of National Stadium is around 50,000 people.
Right. Okay. And another area, you mentioned this business of unticketed spectators. People are just coming to soak up the atmosphere, who come into the cities and hang around, and they don't have a sort of structured plan. If they've got a ticket to the event, they haven't got a pre-designated route where they're going. They could just be anywhere in the area. How on earth do you make provision to deal with people like that? And can you keep anything in reserve?
I mean, obviously Vancouver, I think they can just call up a few more trains, but I think the challenge for us is we've got to manage the media. I think that's so important. I think if you look at what happened in Auckland in New Zealand, you know, the media announces a fantastic bright day, come downtown, have a few beers and enjoy the Rugby World Cup. And as a result of that, all the schools gave up, half day. They decided they'd go down there. So the kids went down, the offices turned out, and the guys who I went and saw told me that by 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the place was heaving and nobody could get there. And it was a nice day as well. So I think we have to manage the messaging. And there are some events, I think, in central London which will encourage particular weekends, cycling, road events, the triathlon. We have got to manage people's expectations. You know, it might be better to say, actually, it's best to watch this on your TV rather than being 25 deep and struggling to get in and out of London to see, you know, a cyclist go by. I know that sounds a little bit negative, but I think you've got to be realistic about this. You know, yes, come in, enjoy the atmosphere, but we have to pay particular attention to the forward traffic, so we know when we can say to people, it really isn't worth the effort, and, you know, come back another day when you can enjoy yourself.
That's right. Everybody's attention is on Stratford, but as you say, there are all sorts of other venues everywhere else that need to be serviced and managed at the same time.
Absolutely. I mean, the London Marathon, which is normally stretched out over 26, sort of miles, is a double route because they want to get it past, all the media want to get it past the iconic, Big Ben and, Tower of London. But what it means is you've got twice the density of people. You're trying to cram in half the distance, and that's going to be a challenge. But we have worked it. We've got lots of plans. We understand. We've got some great modelling tools. But I think that will be something we'll really be focusing on for the Olympics.
Okay. Mike, one of the sort of well-publicised advantages of the automated metro is this ability just to sort of turn the taps on and put more trains out for a sudden surge. But presumably you get to the point where if you're putting a train out every 90 seconds, you're going to run out of trains before how do you actually manage the fleet in optimising the flows?
Yeah, so we had a plan, to run the extra trains, and we ran almost every train that we had in terms on our main line. On the Canada line, we actually ran every single train. Different type of equipment on that line, and we ran with no spares at all. We just kept it going. But we have pocket tracks where we can turn trains around and get them in quicker. But we were running trains every 90 seconds, and as I said to you before, the folks had the rectifier stations open, and they had fans because there was so much heat coming out of there.
Actually pushing the thing to its limits. So you,
We expect until the Olympic, with the new trains, we increase our capacity in 63%. So we hope it's enough to give option in the games.
yeah.
But I believe that we usually operate big events, like the New Year Eve in Brazil is a huge event with more than 2 million people in a small area. So you can organize this. And like you said in London, the Olympic is at the same time with our winter vacation. So the demand decreased 10%. So you have more space to deal with this.
Right. So you're saying a 63% increase in capacity. Comes. Another sort of question is, how do we harness this investment for the longer term? How do we make sure that what we're buying to cope with the peak actually has a real legacy value afterwards?
Yes. But beside the trains, I think the legacy is the extension. Because people want for this for a long time, and only because of the games they decide to build the extension until Barra da Tijuca. This area 30 years ago is completely empty, and nowadays is a heavy occupation of this area. So this is the legacy for the city.
So it's actually using the metro to reshape the urban development and the way the city is growing.
Yes, and I believe that this extension we allowed and stimulate the government to do other parts of the line that the city needs.
Right, okay. Anybody else? Right, well, I've had a fair few questions. Has anybody out here got any questions they'd like to raise? We've covered a lot of different aspects. Yes, first.
I'm curious as to how London is getting 100,000 people to turn out on bank holiday for the trial.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Within a day of us advertising these tickets, they were sold. And why has that been? Because I think there's a fascination to get into the stadium and see what it's like and soak up the atmosphere of the aquatic part area. This velodrome, which we've had at least a dozen test events there, have always been oversubscribed. There's an insatiable appetite for seeing these things. So, they come, I think because people perhaps have been disappointed with the ballot system of not getting to the Olympics themselves. Well, the next best thing is to do one of the test events. And you see some really great athletes from around the world are at these events and certainly creating the right sort of atmosphere.
Okay. Anyone? Any more? Right, I'm down here, yes. Hang on, there's a microphone coming. Sorry, if you like to just wait for them.
I didn't know the answer to the question of what are we doing about crowds outside stations during the Olympics. And I think you were saying that you took responsibility for them in Vancouver during the games because and that was a good thing to do. So I wasn't able to answer what we were doing in London.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. In central London, Transport for London have agreed actually to be responsible for crowd management for the venues in central London because they're involving road races and affect the bus and the rail infrastructure. I think in other areas, for example, the last mile, as it's called in the stadium, actually the organising committee for LOCOG, for the Olympics, are actually taking the accountability. There is a difficult area for us here, particularly when we deal with football, because we find there could be a risk if we take responsibility for the public realm of the crowds arriving to our station and there's a public order problem or something happens, it technically doesn't belong to us as a legal entity, it's the local authority. So often we rely on the event organisers. For example, at Wembley, they provide marshalling and also policing, which the actual football organisations get charged for. It is difficult because I have a little bit of concern, I'll be honest with you, that if we start to sort of become the marshals, 100 yards, 200 yards, 500 yards, 2 kilometres, we then take on a huge challenge for ourselves in terms of operations, where I think the responsibility needs to be firmly with the event organisers and obviously the police. The police now have a view that they don't provide marshalling. They only step in for public order. Now with football, they're pretty close to us because they want to make sure nothing gets out of hand. But with these events, we are going to rely on ambassadors through not only Transport for London, but also the wider GLA and LOCOG assisting us with those crowds. But in some ways, because London's so connected, that if you get a crowd building outside Victoria Station today, we do have a process of managing that. It will be some of the other locations in central London that we have to pay particular attention to. And we're working through those plans now with the local authorities. It's a tricky one. If you take on too much accountability, and Sarah, as a lawyer, you end up taking someone else's responsibility and you can get yourselves into some deep water as a result.
Interesting aspect. Very, yeah. Good. Anyone else? Any more points? One there. Nigel.
I've got one question about accommodating disabled and handicapped passengers. I would assume for the normal Olympics, the proportions you're expecting would be the same proportions you'd expect for any other event. But historically, does the Paralympics attract a higher proportion of passengers with movement difficulties? And if so, how are you addressing that problem?
The data says that actually for public transport, whilst there will be more concentrated groups of people with mobility issues, that we won't see a disproportionate change in the numbers, and we're talking about 1 or 2%. We are aware that we have to make sure that our step-free access equipment is absolutely on the ball, because without it, that you're really struggling to get around the system. There's also some great opportunities through our buses, which all have the ability to board and alight through step-free. And we have a system called Dial-A-Ride, which normally provides support for community mobility impaired people, which will be deployed at the central hubs. I think, again, we will need to take stock of this as the Paralympics unfolds and ensure that where there are pinch points or issues, we can get people with all sorts of needs. This is not just talking about people who use wheelchairs, but all sorts of needs around to the park. But according to the data we're provided, it doesn't vary much. You would have thought that, you'd see a great deal more people with mobility needs for the Paras. But actually, for this Games, we're seeing the same sort of percentage.
Yes, our system has close to 30 years. The stations that was built in the last 5 years are completely accessible. But the oldest, no. But since 2007, we are investing in this, and I expect in 2 months, all stations will be completely accessible for disabled people.
Can I just add,
Yeah.
our experience was very similar to what Howard was saying about the numbers. They do increase, but they're small to begin with, so it's not that huge of an impact. And in Vancouver, the system is 100% accessible, so it wasn't a big issue for us. But we certainly did see more wheelchairs, more people with disabilities around. But in relative numbers, it wasn't a huge amount.
And the same situation, the same problem we have in Warsaw. And before this our event, Warsaw Tramways bought a lot of new modern tramways, which are 100% available for disabled people. And also the same situation is in Warsaw Metro. Our tube is quite new. And every station is in 100% available for disabled people, and also Warsaw City Hall organized special special stewards, the young people who will be help everyone, and of course disabled people, and also other members of this event.
Okay. Thank you. Any more? Anybody else? I don't see anyone. Yes, can I ask you, in London, we've put a blockade on doing engineering and major construction projects. I mean, even the sort of 10-year Thameslink programmes having a sort of 6-month break in the middle. We just stop. You're in the middle of building a new metro line at the moment. Is that going to stop, or can you work round it while you're...
The stop is today. Yes, I am here, and my people organize some special transport because we have to break first line, because the reason of this is the construction of interchange station between first and second line, and during Eurocup everything should be okay. And of course, the construction will be our project will be under construction. And we organize, specifically we organize this found zone close to the construction, and it will be the same in the same time we will the same problem from found zone and from the construction. And as I said, between found zone and National Stadium, we prepare special corridor for the funds and only for the public transport, and also for the cars for UEFA family.
Right, so you can separate them away from the...
Yes, it is very important because during construction it is normal. For the station we are using cut and cover technology, and you know the depth of the maximum depth of the station, it is minus 40-45 meters, and it will be big 7 holes in city center.
A lot of work. Any more questions out there? I think, right, can I ask all of you, maybe? Everybody sort of focuses on managing and all the preparations. There's 2 points. Presumably you will have sort of war rooms to sort of monitor in real time what's actually going on and feeding it back. And is there a mechanism that you've got in place for actually learning from this, that what the lessons that you can then apply into everyday operations in the future? So who wants to start? Mike, you were first, and we'll just go through in the order of events.
So yeah, we had certainly we did all of our planning coordinated with all of the other agencies, the event organizers, and everything else. And so we had a room that we set up for the Olympics to manage transportation. That had all of the different agencies in it, along with the police, so that we knew what was going on real time and all of that. And we're constructing now a transportation management center for the region, so that we'll be able to do the same things there during major events and that kind of thing.
So it's a permanent equivalent of the arrangements.
Yeah, we didn't have it in time for the Olympics, but it was in the plan to build anyways.
Okay. Jerzy, do you have a sort of regional planning strategy for your...
Yes, for Euro 2012, our region prepared special scenario and also special command control center. And in this scenario is very important. This scenario is cooperation between national railways, local railways, and of course local public transport. And also very important in second scenario, it is cooperation between football organization for many countries, because we should know how many funds will take, for example, railways and airplanes. And this knowledge show us what kind of places we will connect. For example, we know at this moment that a lot of funds will take airplanes, and we organize special railways connection between Warsaw Airport and Found Zone. And also at this moment we know that, for example, the funds from the football organization from from Russia ordered around 30 special trains for between Russia area and Warsaw. I think this event will be a big chance and big challenge, of course, for communal service, and I think it will be good event. And if you have time, I invite you. It will be excellent time.
So, Howard, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I think at the strategic level, there's a new transport coordination centre in London, and that will cover all aspects of transport, including the airports, the non-London events, and that will provide the information hub for transport, and will be directly plugged into the Olympic organisers. And then if I take the underground, for example, we have strengthened our network control centre, where we're bringing in, for example, the engineers and the teams who are maintaining the railway into one place. Because it is important that I think my experience of dealing with big incidents or events, the closer you get the teams together, the better the communication. And a bit like Vancouver, we have actually on the plans now to spend £26 million on a brand new coordination centre, learning the lessons perhaps out of the Olympics, which will bring all our control systems at the top level, not the signalling systems, but the control systems at the top level together, including the police as well. At present, we're co-located with our British Transport Police. I think they are a very important ingredient with us, and we see an important part. The other thing I'd say is we have learnt so much from Sydney, from the guys at Vancouver. I think it is so important that you take a lot of the knowledge and understanding of what's happened. And if you go into the Olympic planning sessions, you'll hear a lot of Australian and Canadian accents, because they know, they've experienced it, they know what you're doing. And I'd say that's a welcome thing for our experience. We'd love to sort of, whatever lessons we learn, to pass on some of that knowledge to others as they go forward for Olympics. And I'll have to brush up on my Portuguese, which is very limited.
Yeah, we try to learn with our experience in the big events and the Pan American Games that quite the same, not so big than the Olympic, but is similar. But to the Olympic Committee in Brazil has a special director to transportation area. And it's a woman, is an engineer, it's a former colleague in the board of MetroRio and the suburban trains, and she is trying to organize. She will be here in London during the Olympic Games, and we will share the experience with the operators.
Maybe it's another benchmarking category for Comet in the future. Anybody? Yes, Joe first, and then Mr. Chill.
I think there's a question for all of you, all four of you. How have you taken into account the worst case scenario from a terrorist situation?
Look, we don't have this experience, but we understand that in a big event, international event, you have to be prepared. Besides, in Brazil, it's not common. We know that here in London, Spain, and a lot of places, they have this terrible experience. But in the same way, this director of the Olympic Committee, we try to take to us some experience for other countries, other cities, to try to apply in Rio. Because we really don't have this experience.
That's the question often asked. We're an open system. We couldn't ever provide the sort of pre-travel security checks that you see in airports. It's impossible. I think the very important thing is that we have really good working relationships with very specialist now experts in the field worldwide through the Metropolitan and the British Transport Police. We have a lot of measures in place. We've had a big exercise in the last couple of months in practicing a major event. And we have also got a lot of people. It's not only our staff who are the eyes and ears who've been very useful, but a lot of our customers and certainly we'll be talking to making sure people are aware of what things that they need to look out for. You know, it is something we've got to prepare for. It's something that we don't publicise a lot, but as far as I'm concerned, I think we're in a really good position and to make this a successful games without those tragic and terrible incidents, and we want to maintain that.
And I would just say the same as Howard. You know, certainly the Olympics comes with its own security group that's quite attuned to all of that, and in Canada we have the RCMP who are very involved as well, and they're involved in all of the planning. They map out all the security zones and all that kind of stuff, and then they help everybody work through exercises and all of that. You know, we did some of our own ourselves, but we also participated in I think they called it a gold, silver, and a bronze exercise. So,
in our countries, organized special committee, which is responsible for safety and security during this event, and of course, in each public transport organization, there are also special groups, special departments, which organize safety and security procedure. And of course, for my reason, as a public transport operator, the first our rule it is prevention, and we also prepare a new cameras, CCTV center. And also we educate. We educate our people, all our employees, drivers, supervisors, everyone, because we have to inform about some negative behavior and some others potential bad situation. And of course, we will working together with special forces, which are special dedicated for this situation.
Okay, thank you. Sure. One down here in the front.
I've got a question for Howard. What are the traffic and crowd management lessons that we learned from the 2008 Beijing Olympics, and how have this been incorporated in your plans?
Yeah, we had quite a few people out in Beijing. I think what we found was that it's quite a different transport challenge for us. You know, there was one or two dedicated lines into Beijing, into the main stadium. They had a superb bus network because the road system was bigger than the historic London streets that you can see outside are challenging. You know, not only are we talking about transport challenges on the tube, but we've obviously got these dedicated games lanes and Olympic route network to get what is quite a challenge of the Olympic family to and from the games. I think what we found is that the advantage we have is we haven't got all our eggs in one basket, that we have, if we do lose a particular route or network, with some good planning we can get, the capacity is still available to get people home again or to the event successfully. And that's really where we've got to be very good at real-time information in the stadium, and also as people travel to the event. So that's really important. I think we certainly, another difference is, you know, Beijing, there wasn't a lot to do when you were, left the stadium or arrived. You arrived, you had a great event, and then you're out again. We have a huge commercial shopping mall. There's a lot of stuff within the stadium. It will allow us to manage people in terms of their departure and arrival times, which I think will be an advantage to us. But we learn, I think there's a lot of parallels between us and Sydney, and we certainly learned a lot of guys, and a lot of guys came over from Sydney to talk to us about their experiences. But Beijing was a very successful operation. I think we just need to make sure that we've got the sort of uniqueness of London sorted in terms of historic sort of infrastructure.
Okay. Anyone else? Right. Can I we've just got time for one quickie. We talked about crowd management and handling the flows. Thinking about engineering and maintenance and the risk of something falling over. Are you going to have sort of teams on hot standby around the network or flying squads ready to go out at a moment's notice. How do you manage your technical support to keep the system functioning? And you've got no time for maintenance and you've got to react instantly.
I'm sure Vancouver's, we learned a lot of lessons from them about how you've got to have responsive teams. In taking an infrastructure which is ranging from 1926 signalling all the way up to the most modern, there's no doubt something's going to break. I can't claim that we're going to have, 28 days of perfect operations. I'm sure there's people in this audience who understand that. Maybe Hong Kong or Singapore, but not in the UK. And I'd say the reason for that is that, we have got to respond. The most important thing is getting those wheels turning again quickly. We have got additional emergency response teams. We've got additional support staff. We're bringing a lot of contractors in from other organisations to assist us. We're looking at the ability to move people around quickly, to get people to site, and lots of spares and preparation. And the other thing is, as I think the guys in Vancouver said, you've got to do lots of drills. So over the next few months, we will be simulating, a number of incident failures and trying to get people to site quickly. The quicker you get the technicians there, the quicker you can get the wheels turning again. It is going to be a big challenge for us, and I think we've got to be realistic and make sure that we have plans which say if that particular route is unavailable or there's a delay here, how do we get people around the network? Mm-hmm. And the great thing about the tube is that it is like an electrical diagram. You have choices. Mm-hmm. You can route people other way pretty quickly. You've got buses, you've got other infrastructure. We've just got to tell people how they can do that.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else want to comment on the engineering side?
It's the same situation.
I think common principle, yes, you get the wheels turning again. Right, well that brings us nicely to, we're actually bang on time, I think the first time for this conference, so we come to our refreshment to coffee break. Can I firstly thank my panel all very much again for their contributions. Thank you. Okay.